Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I welcome everyone on this session. The economy of result. Digital data is the new foundation of a business model. We have a busy schedule today. We have only 1 hour and very interesting speakers here with us today. Therefore, let me introduce our today's speakers. Scott Barnett, the Global Robotics and Automation Leader at 3M. Kirill Kayam, Senior Vice President for Innovation at Skolkovo Foundation. Artem Natrusov, Vice President for Informational Technology of Evraz Holding. Zoya Kaika, Deputy General Director of Solars. Viktor Bespalov, Vice President and CEO of Siemens Digital Industry Software in Russia, CIS and Turkey. And Sergei Kazantsev, Director for General Transformation and LMK Group. As an introduction, I'd like to briefly say a few words. Currently, coronavirus has introduced some changes, delays, but we are living at the age of digital technologies, and companies have to revise their business models, their relationship with customers, with suppliers, how their product looks like, the product that they're making money from. And the models of monetizing require revisiting, and there is nothing new about that. In July 2020, this topic has been discussed extensively in many areas, even new phrases, catchphrases appear like data are like new oil and so on, and companies have learned or almost learned to generate massive amounts of data that can be transformed into money using certain ways of analyzing those data. And as a director of technology department of KPMG, I'd like to mention our global study. Last year, we had study in terms of industrial segment. We asked hundreds of CEOs of large companies, and despite some bright expectations from digitalization, but more than 50% of CEOs admit that the board of directors in their companies have some unrealistic expectations in terms of return on investments. Understandably, we are here in Russia. We don't need to get into these global statistics because we have different situation, but still today we would like to discuss the following issues: how we can collect and process data from digital technologies, how we can get a benefit and highlight the value for our clients, and how we can revise our business models with a focus on data processing. And for industrial segment, and unlike banks and retails and telecommunications, it may be less obvious, but we need certain digital creativeness. Therefore, I would like to discuss our discussion with Viktor Bespalov. Viktor, many people say that classical digitalization implies transformation of business models when companies differently earn money differently, and the overwhelming majority of cases of digitalization include implementation of certain end-to-end digital technologies into typical business processes. That is, they do not change the model itself, but they change some certain elements of those business models using some trendy technologies. And therefore, I'd like to ask, in Siemens Digital, what is transformation of business model in terms of data processing for you and Siemens? Good question, actually. I totally agree that the topic is thoroughly discussed, and practical examples are not very many. They are quite few. If we look at Russian market, currently I haven't heard about some serious successful stories that go public, and about companies that are ready to share this data. And we do know how to collect, how to generate big data. We learned how to do it, how to collect this data, but we do not quite understand how to deal with those data, how we can transform our business on a new track. Therefore, I think we have to undergo certain path which consists of several stages. We have to learn how to collect this data, we have to learn how to analyze this data, and we have to understand the value of this data. It's here at Siemens we have our practical examples at different in different divisions, departments, and which is related to production, manufacturing of turbines, and so on. And we can show the value of data with practical examples, and how we can use this data to build on the business model. But we have to undergo a number of stages, and these stages are interconnected. We have to collect this data, we have to learn how to analyze this data, and based on this data analysis we have to decide on transformation of our business model. Are there any particular examples that are resultant from this staged data processing and staged work with data? First of all, we have our own examples, but I also would like to refer to one interesting case. It's quite recent. It's open access information. Greenforce company, it produces pumps. It monetized its services instead of selling equipment, and their customers buy the service on liquid transportation instead of buying equipment. And this is part of complex and manufacturing system. There's Danish company which produces food products, and they use Siemens digital solutions. This is one particular digital example with our clients, where we could really demonstrate the value of this business model and data processing. And how did this data processing help you with this transition from buying the equipment to buying the service in terms of liter per hour and so on? And what is the role of digits here? Well, as I already mentioned, we have to undergo a number of steps. Currently there are several models of data use. Model number one is related to assets, inclusion of assets like engines, control units, robots. The next step is when we include manufacturing assets of the company, like pieces of equipment, and the value is generated at the level of the enterprise. And the third advanced level model, it is model which includes ecosystem. And each of these models implies various levels of maturity in terms of digital data use, and we can define three major groups. First, when we connect and monitor, we use Internet of Things, and we collect data to improve the processes, to improve customer service, to reduce the downtime, etc. After the first initial step, when we connected, then we monitor, and the next step begins, which is analysis and prediction. We create analytical models. We look for new ideas. We integrate data and modern tools for data analysis. We implement computer-aided processes. And the third step, which is very interesting for everyone, is digitalization and transformation, when we use targeted applications, develop new products, applications, business models. And the key thing here is synergistic effect of at all three levels. We cannot just connect the data and initially jump and immediately jump to transformation. The intermediate step is needed. And there is lots of confusion because everyone collects data, but there is no clear understanding of what we should do about this data. And there are different difficulties with implementation, deployment of the platform, with maturity of this platform, and difficulties with integrating various applications. And this is what prevents us from going from step 1 to step 3. Thank you. That's really interesting. If we had more time, we could discuss how service like housing and utility sector, semi-subscribing model, how vulnerable it is in terms of safety risks, how customers or third parties could manipulate the amount of their services they have chosen. These are new digital risks, new digital stories, new digital risks, but we won't discuss this issue right now. But I would be interested in talking about it as well. Yes, I can comment on that if you give me a floor later on. Thank you. Thank you for your comment. And now let's talk to Scott Barnett. 3M processing devices, CNC machines. You know this industry very well. This industry exists. It is older than I am, and this data with CNC machines can be generated over the 15 years, and understandably the amount of this data and skills of working with this data and storage and analysis, processing of this data, this is quite recent story. But for you personally, for your industry, for processing industry, what did you gain from digital data? How it changed your products, your industry, your business?
Certainly, Nikolai. First of all, thanks for having me speak to you today. It's a great experience for me. The advent of robotics in abrasive processing specifically has obviously brought the capability to generate and leverage a variety of data. And historically, these processes, which have typically been manual, were fraught with a variety of challenges, including excessive variability and significant amount of subjectivity for operators who perform these processes themselves. Now that robotics have become more prevalent, it is obviously comes with the capability to generate, collect, and leverage data. Because of this, the needs for the abrasive consumables, as an example, have changed from when processes were manual to when they're robotic. The ability of robots to provide consistency, repeatability, and data generation have allowed us to bring much higher value abrasives to the market. The needs of the customers have changed. They are looking at products which last longer so that robotic cells can stay processing before shutdown to change out the abrasive. In addition, they can use abrasives which require much higher force to get the performance out of the abrasive than, for example, a human can apply. So these abilities of robots to process things differently than humans have given us the opportunity to bring much higher value solutions to the market.
I hope that I understood you correctly, and as I understood, when you use digital data, unlike traditional equipment, you can get higher standardization, higher product quality, repeatability, reproducibility, standardization in different products. But did these data allow you to create brand new products, not only to reduce costs and improve the value, but were you able to create something brand new which was not there before you had these big data masses of data?
Yes, certainly. Certain applications can benefit from different constructions of abrasives, but can be very difficult for humans to apply the types of forces and control the abrasive to the same level that, for example, a robot and the use of the data for the robot can apply. And so one example of this is in the automotive industry, when we are cleaning a laser brazed weld. It's very difficult. The laser braze is a very soft weld, and it's very difficult for humans to control the amount of cleaning and weld removal that is accomplished. And the robot gives us the ability to apply very, very light forces in a very consistent way that humans simply can't apply. And so thereby we could design a very specific abrasive that effectively runs under those light forces to very consistently control the amount of cleaning and weld removal in that particular application. So that's one very specific example.
I mean, new product means that you create additional dehumanizing of the process. So, and you improve the quality of the product, but there is no brand new product. Like welding. We will also have speaker from automotive industry, and it would be interesting to know, to ask Zoya Kaika how she sees this digitalization from third parties, from partners. Are there any examples of newer digital products that we couldn't think of with the use of human effort only? Can you give us such examples when only robots can do, not human?
Sure. In addition to the physical aspect of applying the abrasive to the part, there is also the ability to measure the performance of the abrasive, which can only be done in certain environments, and in many cases not in a manual process, but needs to be done in a much more controlled process, such as a robotic process. So many companies are developing software that can sense or measure certain aspects of the process as well as the incoming part, and use that data to control the robot path. So when we think about product, we don't necessarily only think about the abrasive consumable. We also think about the software and the leverage of data from the process to then adjust or affect how the process is running in the future. So these processes that companies are developing, or products that companies are developing using software such as scanning and then robot path planning, are certainly very, very new things that, when they are packaged with the right hardware and the right consumable, can bring a whole different view of a product into the market that comes with that is not just a consumable, that comes with all aspects of the process to help the customer. So that is becoming more and more common, but is still at the very early stages of development.
Хорошо, хорошо, Скотт, спасибо.
Okay, thank you, Scott.
Возвращаясь
Going back to
тому, что мы как
what we have
консалтинговая компания
discussed
собираем
as a consulting
с рынка, с
advisory
вас,
company,
клиентов,
what we get from the
участников
market,
нашего
from the
мероприятия,
participants
мы
of this
в
meeting.
начале, собственно,
Initially,
пандемии, вот, карантинных
at the
мероприятий,
beginning of
когда
this
многие
pandemic,
IT и
when
цифровые
many
директора
IT and
вернулись
digital CEOs
шли под воду, по сути, в переводе своих компаний.
were trying to transform their companies, IT departments and digitalized segments. They tried to adjust it, and we asked the CEOs of IT and digitalization sectors. We found several dozens of these people, and it was interesting that this poll included how in terms of pandemic, how the pandemic affected the digitalization. Was it slowing down? Was it neutral effect? Or was digitalization increased? The rate increased? And many people tell that pandemic contributed to more rapid digitalization of processes. Even those issues that were difficult to tackle, to discuss at higher levels with the top management of the company, the pandemic stimulated this process of digitalization.
Kirill Kayan, Senior Vice President for Innovation, Skolkovo Foundation. You know that the fund has a program to support some big projects, and a lot of projects have post-quarantine just trying to develop. So what aspects of what kind of projects are more demanding today? Nikolai, thank you very much for the question. So it's very interesting what was said before to me. So two grand industries are talking about the fact that digitalization of industry means a lot of just sensors. There are a lot of sensors, but the question of analytics, how to analyze this data, what can be used to make some conclusions, are still questions which have to be answered with applying non-standard approaches. And I'd like to emphasize that in spite of different categories of industries where the main role is played by big companies, so heavy machinery, so from the just digitalization, preventive analytics, a lot of knowledge and many approaches are associated with some scientific perspectives, and data scientists is the position which could which enable us to solve all these problems. And within the frame of the data that we have, startups and small companies have chances. And they don't need a long-term processes to develop. And there are many Skolkovo companies which support these small companies as small projects, and they provide the financial support to make ready-made products and launch them into the market. And we just invite you not to look only at the big players in the market, but also pay attention to startups. We underestimate these companies, and they can make a progress fast, and they can implement their ideas into the industrial stage. And what we could say about COVID projects? Of course, we as an organization which is forced to react to this dramatic situation in the world, we made a track where the companies which could make some decisions or solutions or innovations against COVID infections, they can get the status of Skolkovo residents, and they could get financial support faster. So, and standard for 5-month procedure could be done for 2-3 months today. So, and we cooperate with the external experts which gave their opinion about this project. So we support a lot of projects, and in our site you could see that 185 projects are focused on the fight against epidemics and its prevention. If you look at the projects concerning digitalization of industry, I'd like to mention the first direction. So concerning the organization of distant working places. So the second direction is security, because now the companies have more risks. They faced with more risks working distantly. And how to solve these problems, how to deal with that. We have a lot of managers which get this data and they process this data and make some management decisions. And from the point of view of the industries where online work is impossible, so we should offer anti-epidemic just measures. So there is a company, High Tech, with ready-made decisions, and the business processes are made the way when they have pay control in smartphone applications, so a lot of documents without some complicated procedures could be signed with electronic signature. There is a company, Differenzica. This is a biometric identification which can protect from the frauds and some mistakes, and it can prove the true documentation and can speed up the process of signing the documents. There is another decision concerning pandemic situation and post-pandemic situation, is the program apparatus complex of information support of the operator. So large scale industry, complicated engineering communications, and the humans in the virtual glasses can get some online sketches, getting the necessary access. Search Inform, another company, how to prevent the information just leakage, so some considers information. And one more example, how to monitor the movement around the territory of the plant. So these are the opportunities to control and to control keeping the distance between the staff, and especially this is needed if something gets wrong. So we should, with this just technologies, we could monitor the temperature, for example, and if the temperature gets high, for example, and the person gets worse, so he could get medical assistance. And apart from anti-COVID projects, the Skolkovo Fund also is an operator of the pilot projects, digital technologies, and within that program we also financially support not startups as we usually do, but large scale industrial cooperation with grant support in the ratio 50-50, and so we decrease the risks of implementation of digital decisions in this industry, because of course it's a difficult thing to implement these digital technologies into the industrial process, so we can help them and decrease their risks. And for startup is also important because we are supporting them, so we show that their technology is valid and could be effective. Thank you very much. I listened to your examples, so some projects with pleasure. So, and I cannot mention the proverb. But all that you mentioned, all you said is relevant. So when the pandemic stops, it will be not only the problem, but for all startups, even in the critical situation, we could get some values. And as you said about the work with large-scale corporations, I'd like to refer to KPMG research. So it is thought that working collaboration is one of the underestimated project work. Thank you very much to Kirill. And I'd like to talk now to continue our discussion with Artem Natrusov, so Vice President Information Technology, Evraz. So about the wide range opportunities for all market players. It is said a lot about that. Of course, digitalization for more traditional directions and spheres is less evident. So today we have talked about the fact that we could collect the data and we could process the data quite well. And the next skill, which is developed at a different level, how to work with this data, what conclusions we can make about the present, future and past. And I'd like to mention once again a global CEO opinion of the industrial companies. More than half of the respondents CEO do not believe to predictive analytical data about their own companies. On the one hand, it can sound a bit conservative, the industrial directors. On the other hand, it could be like a quite clever idea, because they'd like to collect the data from all the industrial sphere, and then they could believe to preventive analytical data more. Artem, what about your just opinion? What is the potential of using the analytical data, and what is the situation in your sphere? Of course, we are not planning to use we are not going to transform all business models. We could transform only just little elements in the sales. We consider the topic marketplace for separate products. When there are many players at one place, could show the availability of the product, but mainly we are going to just increase the effectiveness of the production. The highest potential is in the increasing of industry effectiveness due to the digital technologies and managing big data. And if we look at the aspect of collecting the data and where the companies are moving on, why we should collect the data if we don't know how to use it. So this is a pool of data which could be collected But if we don't know how to use it to solve clear tasks, it won't be valuable. So how we look at the situation, we do it like that. There are two just directions how to use them. So the advanced analytics and basic analytics. Advanced analytics are mathematical models, machine learning, all what is connected with complicated mathematical methods and applied artificial intelligence. And here we achieved some success. For example, now we are finishing the program on advanced analytics consisting of 6 projects, and these projects would increase the effectiveness of different parts of the production process. For example, the right choice of some components for the production. So the coal costs very differently, and if we could choose the optimal combination, so and maybe cheap combination without decreasing the quality of the final product, for example, then due to such increase effectiveness, we could achieve a significant economical effect. And with all these 6 projects, we are at the stage of exploitation, and we could see the annual effect of over $10 million. And in the previous years, we also had tens of projects with economical effects, but these are just up to $10 million of economical effects. So these are not abstract trials, so these are really implemented projects which could be effective and which are effective for the companies. Of course, to implement all these things, we should build up the infrastructure. Our colleague told us about the importance of data science. We can understand how important is data science, and we developed just extra center, Eurasium, located in Novosibirsk, where there is just the center of the team, data science team. We'd like to develop our own competence in this field, because that field is very critical for our company, and we could see that we could get the positive effect. And of course, we are ready to use startups and external expertise, so sourcing, and we use hybrid model. Therefore, so advanced analytics is effective. So a human can make a mistake, and a machine could be more effective, and it is more accurate. And from the point of view of the managing of the industrial process, we could get a positive effect. The machine cannot get tired, machine can be learned and again and again, and at all parts of the industrial process it should be implemented. And this is what is not necessary to do only and to work only with advanced analytics. Of course, basic analytics as well is necessary to take into account. We visualize the managing process from operator to CEO of the company, focusing on the production parameters, not on the financial parameters like turnover and so on. So we focus mainly on the production parameters. Of course, dispatcher can manage this big data, but they accumulate and collect data, and in real time these data are available at all levels, and we can get feedback and solve the problems much faster. So due to the right dashboards and self-service analytics, we could achieve a significant economical effect even without a complicated mathematical models in some cases. Thank you very much. Could you tell us before what goes to the next speaker, 7-8 years ago, there was quite a big case in the market when our giant IT company Yandex at Magnet Combinate there was just the system implemented with the machine learning in Yandex, and it was thought that these machines will always give ideas to the operator in the production department, or with time the operator could be just removed from the process when the machine could be believed. What do you think about that? Could the operator be replaced in the future? Now we are at the level when the machine could give some ideas to the operator, so the machine could give not 100% of recommendations, because sometimes humans can see the problems wider, especially in the just hazardous industries where there are some risks. But now some single elements are replaced with automated management, where the algorithm is quite clear. When this algorithm is simple, for example, with that situation we should do that action, and this should be or can be programmed at the level of programming logistic controllers. Maybe it could be done at a higher level. So in some cases, when the algorithm is clear and simple, it is simple to implement, but in many cases, like in your situation, so the DOM process is very difficult, so it could be very difficult to model. So, and your case in the blast furnace, the process is very difficult, and we decided not to use just the machine learning. We removed the expert system from the producer because there are a lot of chemical and physical dependencies. So, and this is not worse because there is a big experience, and there are thousands of blast furnaces which work effectively like that. So in every particular case we have to choose. So whether to use advanced analytics or strictly follow the algorithm. Thank you very much, Artyom. And I also I'd like to just to give an opportunity to say some words for one more metallurgist, Sergei Kazantsev.
Sergei, we met when you worked in a different industry. Now you are responsible for digital transformation of NLMK company. After we heard Artyom, do you agree that the focus of digitalization is improving operation efficacy, and maybe not metal industry should not look at newer products, but should improve currently existing processes? And tell us about your results, what you do. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I hope you can hear me perfectly well. Yes, we can hear you. Just give me a second, please.
Я как раз, когда слушал
When I
Артема,
was listening to Artyom, I thought that it would be difficult not to repeat certain things, and metallurgy is a quite democratic industry in terms of exchange of best practices, communications. We feel that we all have the same path, but this is inevitable thing. There is certain story that you should undergo certain things, and it's difficult to buy some experience or borrow it from anyone. You have to make this path yourself. Therefore, conceptually, I do agree, but I'd like to share with our views on digitalization. Initially, NLMK defined digitalization as one of the tools for strategic goals achievement. We do not use machine vision. We do not try to implement machine vision in our processes. It was not our way to do things. Our strategy, we use 5-year cycles, and we have certain priorities and we use the extensive technology. We have to understand why we should use it, and we have to calculate it, compute it, and assess it. And after that, we select proper tools, resources. There are four key priorities. Efficiency is number one, reduction of environmental impact, improvement of sales, and capex, capital expenses, growth in terms of capex. So we have digital solutions for each of these 4 areas. Overall, we have about 60 digital solutions we have been using in our company. And it turns out that from these 60 digital solutions, 50 digital solutions are related to efficiency. We do not expect that digitalization is going to change our business models. And I think that iron and steel industry is not going to change dramatically due to digitalization. We do not expect things like that. We can fantasize, but practically we do not expect anything like that. For us, digitalization is simply another tool. And from time to time, once in 3 months, we organize some panel discussion. We look at digitalization effects, we make some key decisions, and we discuss why our decisions focus on certain areas. And there are 4 main hypotheses. First, the earlier you use this transformation stage, then you can affect the efficacy with coal charge, with blast furnace, and so on and so forth. There are some certain fundamental patterns. But the second explanation is, in these areas we have transparency to assess the effectiveness, both estimated and actual, and it's really important. If you can assess your efficacy, you can obtain new resources and move further. So this is very practical thing. And we have our certain traditions, certain track that and the next important factor is we have certain industrial systems implemented for each manufacturing stage, for each transformation stage. There are lots of classical tools, core root reason analysis, and so on and so forth. But digitalization helps us with some most complex computations. So we are not pioneers. We are just using the same paths that have been tested and verified over time. Also, we look at other players of iron and steel industry, and we see mostly similar things. Fundamentally, they do use some digitalization. There are internet internet shops, marketplaces, but they do not affect our business model dramatically. More or less There are some examples, I can give you examples, but they are dictated by the technology that we use. There are about 20 to 30 key points of decision making, and machine can help us with that, from active human involvement. If we talk about blast furnaces, initially pace was determined by humans in terms of rate of rolling, temperature rate. Then machine told us certain ranges, and currently this process is fully automated. But person is still there. The person is monitoring. So we are not talking about human-free production. Well, I'm sorry for interrupting you. You mean that person, individual, is still there for industrial safety requirements? Why you cannot remove person from your industrial process? No, it's not related to industrial safety. But human person is the source of creativity, and machine cannot provide this creativity. Therefore, we still need people in our manufacturing process. And key decisions are made by humans. Team of people developing algorithm, they make key decisions, not the algorithm itself. And these teams, they focus on product development, and we see it everywhere. There is no unique story here. Even if we have some smaller number of people within the workshop, but we have our experts that know the technology very well, that know the toolbox very well, and they are heavily involved in this. Regarding our priorities for the nearest future, I think that Artyom mentioned it, that initially we were focusing on tools. There was kind of illusion. There are lots of tools on the market, and we have to use something. But this stage was very quickly over for us. The second thing, we had to select certain tools for our portfolio, but this is also path to nowhere, because portfolio is not of great value in itself. If we look at our 60 solutions, all our companies like ours, they have more or less the same digital solutions. What is important for us now? Environment for product teams. We have to provide quality environment for people to generate ideas. They have software part and hardware part. Software part includes career, education, and hardware part is infrastructure and so on. And now we focus on allowing our teams to create the portfolios of solutions. Regarding our nearest marathons, we want to reach 100 digital solutions within the next 2 years. Now we have 60. We want to get 100 with consistent effect. This is technically important thing for us. Currently we have 10 teams of product teams, and we are going to increase the number of teams to 20 teams, and we will cover our basic needs. And also I was very amazing that Artyom told the same thing in terms of efficiency. We are going to increase the efficiency about $50 million. Artyom mentioned some digits, figures, but this is not due to some other measures. This is due to digitalization, right? Well, I think that half of our solutions, these are data science analytics. But this is quite a relative thing, because these models are verified and managed by people. Data scientists are attached to certain transformation stage, to certain product team. And another half is DPM, not very deep analytics. We just know our data a little bit better, and we focus better to improve the management of the technology. That is, we understand how to improve the converter productivity better. We know how to change this cycle, how to shorten the interval between various processes, and machine cannot tell you the answer to these questions, but machine can tell you exactly what is going on right now. And for example, when there is desulfuration stage, machine can tell you exactly what time, what excess chemistry is used, and after that, the human individuals are generating ideas what to do about this data. Therefore, we are using digital solutions in our product-based approach. But sometimes it's really difficult. Thank you. If we had traditional format of INNOPROM after this session, we could get together, we could discuss some issues, but we have a little bit different format. We have to move forward, and we are slightly behind the schedule. Zoya, you know, we have talked today about, we have talked to representatives of traditional industries, and we asked them about their attitudes to digitalization. In automobile industry is another traditional industry. Therefore, I suspect you have some new models where digitalization is not just improvement of efficacy, but also how you sell your products differently.
Yes, that's true. Thank you very much, Nikolai. Yes, for us, all digitalization in the company is building up the new business model, which we call vehicle as a service. And I think in INNOPROM, apart from some other resources industries, is the natural process due to the product which we work with is a potent source of the data during all life cycle. And the most important thing is that the markets of the providing the services during the vehicle exploitation and its involvement in the transportation can lead to an increased just extra price. And due to this fact, the basic of the business model, vehicle as a service, these are the data that we could effectively collect, analyze, and convert into the new types of services. The technologies connectivities which we work with allows us to get data from different levels of vehicle exploitation from the vehicle platform. And now the modern vehicles could allow us online about 30 to 40 different data from different vehicle systems during the driving process to control its technical condition. And just the second parameter that we could control is the bulkhead top hamper, which could also help us to control the transportation work of the vehicles, especially commercial vehicles. And one more thing that we could control is getting the data from the driver who is sitting and driving their car. We could analyze his style of driving, his concentration level during driving, and at last, one more just source of data is the environment of the vehicle, so the situation on the road, other participants of the road movement. So, and all these data are collected and could be analyzed. If we talk about vehicle as a service, the idea is that their clients should be able to just get the vehicle for the time that he needs and pay only for the period when this machine, this vehicle could solve his certain problem. And of course, this model from our point of view can give just a potent economical effect from the point of view of interaction between the commercial vehicle and the client's needs. And besides, this model could allow us to principally change the essence of interaction, integrating into the transportation tasks of the client. And in the end, we could decrease the costs associated with transportation and this or that businesses. Our task is just to decrease these costs at least 1.5 times. And you mentioned that there are some tasks associated with the partners. So we understand that it's not enough to be able to process the data ourselves and to monitor this data. But these new services and new models are important only within the integration system. So our analytical system is important only when we integrate this data with our partners who provide the service. And getting our data on productive analytics, our partners could change their business processes and they could decrease their time for providing the service up to 10 times. Therefore, there are some important aspects about that. That's not enough to be able to get data and analyze data. That's important to develop and to build up the ecosystem with the partners who are ready to work with our data, and we could mutually develop some new values and solve important problems for each particular client. Thank you very much. So our organizer tells us that the time is limited. Very short question concerning our digital partner. We talked about one partner just at the beginning of our discussion. You told that you monitor the drivers and his vital signs. Am I right in understanding that very soon we will have non-invasive detectors which could allow us to get the information from the brain? And really, I think that by the time when the neural interface is available, our vehicles could be driver-free, pilot-free. And really all means which could allow us to integrate and to monitor the human consciousness and human reflexes are within the sphere of our interest. Thank you very much to Zoya. Thank you very much to all the speakers, all the participants. For me it was very interesting. I hope that it was so interesting for you too. Thank you.